Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
Thine is the kingdom,
For thine is the kingdom,
glory
power, and glory forever.
Amen. You guys can be seated.
Let's welcome Frank to share us his message.
Can I tilt this back a little bit? Can I tilt this? Alright, thanks. This one. You don't use that one?
It doesn't matter, you can show them.
Good evening. So very excited to always come back and to see everyone and to really come back to my home church. I always call this my home church. Every single time I tell people when I'm preaching, I say I'm going to go back to my home church. So it's really exciting. And you guys just sang a song of Overflow. And so there's a testimony I'll share with you this week. You know, it's been a really rough week for myself and some of the kids that I'm administering to. We just celebrated Mother's Day, and it's really such a wonderful thing that we have our mother in our midst. But we needed to also say goodbye to two mothers in one of my junior high fellowship. One of the mother died of cancer. She was seeking treatment in Germany, and she died over there. She wanted to try to make it so that she could see her 3 kids here in America. And another mother died, which is a very dear best friend of mine. We grew up together. He actually went to this church before, a youth group member. But mother passed away, battling cancer. But God gave her a miracle too, 3 years. That the doctor said she couldn't live for 3 more years, but she was able to. And so it has been rough, 2 funerals, and all of a sudden on Monday I caught a crazy fever. After going to the funeral, my whole body just feels chills. And my whole body feel the chills. I thought it was just because the funeral home is just very cold. But when I went outside, which is still 70 degrees, my body is feeling the chill. And this is the first time. So when I went back to the after school, I took the thermometer and then tried to test it. And I had a fever of like 101.9. I never get fevers, hardly get sick. But that time, I was just like, oh, so sick. I feel very tired. And so my next idea is that I will have to go see my doctor. And I hate going to see my primary doctor. Why? Because every single time she'll keep me there for like 40 minutes, just talk about different things. Just talk about ministry and talking about how everything is. And then every single time I would have to get a blood test. So I get really annoyed because I did blood tests for her for 4 times last year. And I was like, I don't want to draw any more blood. So I was very hesitant, but I felt like, okay, I have daycare children here. I have after-school children here. What if I get them more sick? So I decided to call her and went in. So I went in on Tuesday after I had a meeting in the morning. All of a sudden, God asked me, would you give? I said, give? What? Give what? I give every single one of my days to serving you. So what do you want me to give? He said, $400. $400? $400 I don't have. Why do I need to give $400? And then as I was driving to New York City for like a training, I kept on asking God, $400? Really? $400? No. Can't be $400. I don't have $400. And so I was wrestling with God. I was telling him, really? $400? Keep on asking him. And I settled with him and I said, okay, God, if this is the amount you want me to give, I will give. So I decided that night I was going to write all the checks, because I've received a lot of letters and, Facebook messages. I'm going on whatever mission, and apparently God stirred up my heart, and then I said, okay, I will obey. So in the afternoon, I went to see the doctor. Like I predicted, she prescribed me to get a blood test. And then say, well, you need to do this and do that. And then I went to see all these other doctors, every single doctor that you probably could think of, right? And at the end of my consultation with her, she took out a piece of paper and then she just handed it to me. And I was like, what is this? And then she said, just keep it. And then she just turned around and then just said to me, oh, wait, hold on. Let me just make sure I did add that extra 0 in there. And I was like, what is this? So I took it out. She's like, can you check if it's $1,000? And sure it is. It's $1,000. And she said, I just want to bless your ministry. I know that it's so hard to be a person who's serving the Lord. And I was in shock. And I was in awe, because at that morning I was still wrestling with God. A few days before, because I had my hooding ceremony, I graduated from seminary. Oh, thank God, 5.5 years. And someone handed me a card, and I didn't get a chance to open it until that Tuesday as well. And when I opened it, there was a $200 cash in there. And I said, $1,200? I was giving $400? You tripled it? And that's not it. On Friday, my church just decided to ask me, well, you still have that payment on your Mac. I got a Mac Pro, and then I was very excited about getting it. She's like, you still have payments on it? Well, our church does reimburse you 70% of it. I was like, really? And then on top of that, we give graduating seminarian a $200. So actually total added up to $2,200. So imagine, really, when you're singing the song Overflow, do you really think God is the God of overflow? And today what we're going to look at is the principle of kingdom growth. See, it's a very simple story, okay? It's just 4 verses, but it has so much more in depth into it. And so, we want to talk about how Jesus always liked to use agricultural kind of analogy in our everyday life, because he knows it's like you and me. Sometimes the only thing that they know is about agriculture. And so Jesus used it here too. And Jesus made it clear that he wanted to grow this kingdom. And he uses kingdom language, always talking about growing stuff. So let's turn to Matthew 4, 26 to 29. This is a very simple story. But keep up with me, okay? Today I really want to encourage you, if you have not done evangelism before, mission before. I know that this church do mission to Taiwan. And I just saw Tony going across to talk to one of the day laborer, maybe. I'm not making any assumptions. Went to share his testimony. But how often are you really stepping into God's kingdom or sharing God's kingdom? So let's read this together. He also said, Jesus says, this is the kingdom of God is like. A man scatters seeds on the ground, night and day. Whether he sleeps or gets up, the seed sprouts and grows. Though he does not know how, all by itself the soil produces grain. First the stalk, then the head, then the full kernel in the head. As soon as the grain is ripe, he puts the sickle to it, because the harvest has come. See, I really believe that God is talking, his intention is to talk to us about building the church. And so in order to have kingdom growth, there's 3 things. Right? We're going to talk about the 3 M's, okay? The first is kingdom growth involves a ministry. A ministry is what we have here. You have a junior high ministry, you have adult ministry, and it's, what does it say in the beginning? A man scatters it. It's you and me. It's people. For his own reason, I don't know what reason it is, he chose us. God has chosen us to grow his kingdom. That's why you see churches all over the place. Their heart is to really share this kingdom with the people. And so God could have chosen anyone, angels, to do his work, but he could have created other beings to do his work, but he has chosen use us, who saved us and to use us at the same time. And I'm sure each of us have a conversion story that it's probably very special to you. And each of us was saved by a believer, or somewhere, someone has sold this gospel seed into your heart. And then it began to germinate, and it produced life. This new Christian